Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second show of the year. Thanks for joining us again. We appreciate it a lot. We're going to start today's show talking about the IHRSA Convention and Trade Show. All of us on the show, of course, were there and spent some time together, and it was great to see a lot of you in person, some of you for the first time back at the IHRSA Convention and Trade Show. Had a lot of people ask me during the show and after, well, Brent, how did it go? You know, how was the convention? How was the attendance? And by all accounts, it was a big success. IHRSA was really planning on, or expecting, I should say, about 6,000 people to attend the convention. And when all was said and done, they had just over 8,500 attendees registered. So that was a big success. Representing 82 countries, some 330 different vendors out on the trade show floor that were really excited about the amount of traffic that they got with people coming into the trade show. So I could go on and on. I'll just mention one thing that was a big highlight. I think all of us would agree that Rob O'Neill, the former U.S. Navy SEAL that actually helped kill bin Laden, was the keynote on the second day, and everybody thought he was spectacular, as did I. He was a great storyteller, and of course, he's got a great story to tell, so that was great. The first keynote was Robin Banaska, and Robin is an extreme adventure racer. What I think even my colleagues on the show didn't know is that I was a teammate of Robin's in one of those Eco Challenge races in California. And then I compete against her in the Discovery Channel's race up in British Columbia.
And how'd that work out, Brent? How'd that work out?
Well, she kicked my butt in British Columbia. That's the way that worked. So what did you guys think about the convention and trade show? What were kind of your takeaways and highlights?
Go ahead, Bill.
No, well, I was going to say is I think Sara should go first.
Okay. Yeah, so what a gentleman. I was really amazed by there was this cool product, this ab product, and they created the entire product by a 3D printer, and it was a big product. And I was like, that's awesome to create prototypes on a 3D printer. So you're not spending $50,000 going over to China to build a mold on something you don't even know if it's going to work. And the inventor, I think, was younger than my youngest son. Okay. Yeah. This kid was walking around, and it was a fabulous ab machine. I'm embarrassed I can't remember the name, but it also would assist you pulling back. So it was multi-generational, different fitness levels. They didn't just focus on this guy with incredible abs, although that is what drove me to the booth. But it helped with older adults as well, because it could help pull you back when you were doing your ab workout. So that was one of my greatest takeaways.
Yeah, I missed that, but I was really excited about some of the combination of massage and infrared light therapies. You know, with regard to, there's human touch, there's hydro massage, and there was another vendor out there. Can't think of the name of it. Hopefully, maybe one of you remember the name of it. But they put the red light, blue light, the whole thing right there on the facial plate while you lay on the machine, and it was very, very quiet. But some of the stuff on the restoration and the recovery, segment of our industry that's growing so well, I was excited about a lot of that stuff. But it did, Brent, feel like the show was back. It felt like the industry was back. The energy was a lot bigger than it was last year in Florida. It felt like the show was right there where it should be, with the attendance and the energy and everybody getting back engaged with growth.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I talked to a lot of vendors, had a chance to be on the trade show floor, maybe more than I ever have. Vendors were really excited. One of my favorite things to do is to walk the very perimeter. The people that are just trying to break into the industry, maybe have smaller budgets, see what's happening there. Two of my favorite products from the whole thing was Clean Freaks. It's a very, very low tech. In fact, Corey Price at Gold's Gym in Idaho, they sell these a lot, he said, in their gym, and they're these scented, biodegradable kind of towelettes in individual packages that smell like lavender or mint or something like that. Great use case for some of our instructors between classes, maybe for trainers. But he said he keeps them in his golf bag for one thing, but he says they sell quite a few of them to members there. So I thought that was really cool. On the tech side, I really love Facility Vitals because I feel like they're solving a problem that our industry has to get solved. And that is understanding, how a member can actually self-report the issue of a piece of equipment, how that gets captured. And I think they were doing
Wait a minute, Blair, you're excited about something that allows members to give feedback on an operational aspect of a facility?
I find that hard to believe, my friend.
I find that very interesting that you'd be attracted to something like that.
One thing
Exactly.
I also saw that was really cool was people were attending sessions. I mean, even Brent's sessions. I mean, it was packed. And I did a trend session, and usually I'll get like 30 to 50 people. There were well over 100 people and people standing in the back. And these 45-minute sessions, I look over and there's no class after me. So they kept asking questions. I went 15 minutes over and not one person left. I mean, maybe it was that we, handcuffed them to the chairs, but everybody was hungry to learn. They didn't just hover around the expo area. They attended sessions, and actually the Brent session was really excellent, really well attended. It was cool.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, the other thing that makes it even more encouraging, and some of you may not know this, but typically the IHRSA convention, almost 50% of the attendees are international. And the international crowd, because of the hangover from COVID, is still not really back traveling internationally. So, we didn't have a big contingent, of course, from Russia, from China, Japan, some of the other countries where historically we've had a pretty good amount of people come over, such that IHRSA is translating it into a number of different languages. So I think next year's in LA is going to be even bigger, because I think that'll attract the international crowd back too. So overall, yeah, it was a good event. It's great to have everybody back, and another sign that the industry is not only surviving but thriving going forward. So we hope you'll enjoy the lineup for today's show. Blair's going to start us off talking about this concept of applying and the exclusivity of gyms.
Yeah. So if you guys think all the way back to when the pandemic started and sort of how this show was spawned and some of the information we would talk about, I mentioned that I thought there was going to be an opportunity for smaller, very high-end gyms that are staffed with fitness professionals that are 24-hour key card. We talked about it several times. The reason I brought that up is because of the feedback we were getting when we did the shutdown survey, and what people were saying was most important to them when they come back, right? And it implied we're willing to pay for certain things. Well, I don't know if it's because of the pandemic or not, but it certainly seems to be proliferating. And the idea is that you don't join a club, you must apply. And they call out Hyman in Los Angeles, the new one that opened by RSG that owns Gold's Gym. It's a big club, it's 75,000 square feet. It's a lengthy application. You have to give all your social media handles. They do a deep dive on your social media. And then you get a confirmation as to whether you're accepted or not. And in the article, the New York Times article, this woman applies, and it's a month before they let her know that she's accepted, and her other friends didn't get in. So she says it feels a little bit awkward. Well, it's not just clubs that size. There's smaller ones. Brent, I think there's Ghost in New York that we may be visiting here in a few weeks. And they're all following the same process. One of my takeaways on this, it's this, they're asking, why are they doing the application process, right? Well, they all say, we're looking for a certain type of person. At HiMat, they don't want the person that's just in there to do selfies. They want a person that is like the other people that are joining. They want somebody who's more outgoing, that will socialize and not just be to themselves. And they create a lot of social spaces along with the fitness spaces. It's like the essence of this application process is the recognition that the member who joins is a big part of what your brand actually is. They're the ones that are representing the brand. So I'll kick it over to you guys.
Yeah, there's been I think the majority of growth in our industry over the last decade for sure. And a lot of the conversation has been about the low cost models, right?
Right.
The HVLPs, and there's some have even labeled it the battle to the bottom, right? Everybody's trying to, compete in that low cost model to an extent. And this is the complete other end of the spectrum. And at one point in my career, I managed a club where we actually had a waiting list for 6 months. And there wasn't an application process like you're talking about, but still people came in, they put a deposit down, and we would call them back when, the member left, and we invite the next person in. But that whole concept of having to wait for something that was just not being sold went over fabulously.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
think that-
I think that's a little,
I think
I think
that-
that's a little bold, and I think you're bragging a little bit. Most of us have never had a waiting list for our facilities. We always got room for one more member, but you're just an extraordinary operator, and you can pull that off,
Well,
But
it wasn't
it's
anything about
being-
me. It was all about Dr. Cooper, but the name helped.
But it's being pulled. I think our industry is getting a section that's looking more like a country club. We've talked about this with Lifetime, $250 a month for membership. There's country clubs, like there's a country club out here. It's a 7-year waiting list, and they just keep hiking and hiking and hiking the price.
Yeah.
So I think we've got these lower end models, but we've got this country club type atmosphere. I worry about some of the discrimination and inclusivity challenges they're going to have, but I think I see what's happening.
Well, some of these have the, this is $595 to $2,750 a month, depending on what services you want. In the 2 locations for this group, West Hollywood and Flatiron in New York, they limited memberships to 200 in Los Angeles and 300 in New York. So you can bet, there's wait lists there. But I just think there's kind of that high-end exclusive model without a lot of members that could maybe fit in almost any community, right? Like, what does high-end mean in your community, and what does high price mean? Maybe it's 99, maybe it's 100, who knows?
But I
there,
think
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
might
me
have
think
been-
it's too. Go ahead, Sarah.
I just thought it might have also been spurned by the pandemic started.
Yeah,
Because it was like, we need to do personal training. Now we need to do small group training. And I've lost my community for 2.5 years. And these are going to be like-minded people in a similar economic status. And maybe this is kind of an outgrow of that.
I do think that was a driver. I do.
Yeah. Well, we've all talked for, the last show and continue to talk about the importance of community. And this is really defining that community in a very sort of specific way. That's one thing I think of. The second is something else we've mentioned on this show in the past is this wealth with a W, wealth divide, that those who, are financially really secure have a lot more opportunities perhaps than those that don't. But that's a subject for another day. There certainly is an audience out there at that end of the spectrum. All right, Sarah, you want to take us next to employment law? How exciting
Sure.
could that be?
My mother would be so proud that I'm actually utilizing my law degree. Okay, so I'm very excited. Equinox may have to pay $36 million because of a wage and hour class action settlement. And they had 15,000 employees, and 2 of them actually got together and decided, all right, I'm teaching group X, and I have to get there 15 minutes before class and talk to people like I want to do that. And then I have to get there 15 minutes after and scoop everybody up. And plus, I'm only getting paid for that 1 hour. And I had to create my own program. So at home, I'm working on it and I'm practicing and I'm developing my choreography. And the same thing with personal trainers. They've got to stay up to date on every type of technique. They've got to get in early. They may even have to look at their own leads and make their own sales. And they're not getting paid for these hours. And one of the primary basis of this lawsuit was personal trainers had to work 4 hours in a row. And legally, according to California law, you have to get paid for 10 minutes if you work for 4 hours in a row. So there's these 15,000 people that aren't getting paid for creating programming or staying up to date, or that extra 10 minutes when they're training people. And I thought that was really interesting. And they actually settled. Well, of course they settled. No one wants to pay a lawyer. Why do you think I'm in fitness? But this is the coolest thing. The coolest thing is it's stuck in California. How many employees nationwide are there for Equinox? So for you out there who's a club owner and you're working in one state, you got to watch that employment law. But if you own clubs in multiple states, can then they just, the class action that maybe was denied, or maybe the money that was provided when they won wasn't enough, and you want to appeal it to the US Supreme Court because it's interstitial, it's multiple states. Oh my gosh, you can't do that. According to 2022, the US Supreme Court said, we will not look at appeals for class actions that are multi-state, because you shouldn't be able to what's called forum shop, which means, okay, I'm in Nebraska, but because Equinox also has clubs in California, I'm going to sue under California law because the California law is really wacky, to be honest with you, and very sided to the employee. So I thought that was pretty fascinating, because I think Equinox is pretty lucky to be limited to California law. But I think as club owners, you might want to look at that. I did a little bit more digging. There's only 2 circuits that will allow the appeals to go to the US Supreme Court. And those are the First Circuit and the 7th Circuit. That's Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Puerto Rico, and Rhode Island. And the 7th Circuit is Illinois, Indiana, and Wisconsin. So you know what? Just treat your people fairly. Pay them what they're worth, because goodness knows we have a shortage of Group X people and personal trainers, and they see their value now. And they'll go after you.
And I think you have to know what's called here in the state of Washington, maybe it's also everywhere else, what piecework is, right? Because PIECE, piecework, and you can get paid by the piece, and driven a lot by agriculture. How much to, for, when you pick a bin of apples or cherries or something like that, right? So there are piecework laws, and they do apply in our state to things like group exercise and personal training. But that means be clear on what you're paying for a class and how long the class is. And remember that as minimum wage has skyrocketed, they still have to divide that minimum wage into the time to make sure you're above that minimum wage when you're paying for piecework. But you can state it as you're being paid for the class or the session. And there's a lot of stuff you can do. And if you're small and you're not afraid of a class action suit, it's not about that. It's about a complaint. It's about a complaint about your labor practices. Here it would be to Labor and Industries or something like that. Yeah.
Right. And you
to take
gotta
that
be
one
careful, because if you write it up like a session or you put it in the job description, the courts can also pierce the corporate veil and say, you wrote it this way in your contract, but we know what you really mean. But that may be
We actually got ours upheld.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm moving to Washington.
Because we had it, and this is years ago, but we got way out ahead of it. We want the 15 minutes before, the 15 minutes after. We paid for it. We did the math on it to make sure it was going to be paid plenty if somebody went back and said, how much is it per hour? But we were very clear. A session starts here and it ends here. And then if it was a 60-minute or a 45-minute, we paid the same, right? With the shoulder times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Go ahead, Bill.
on the flip side of that, what some clubs have done is, and I'm not saying this is the right thing to do, but they've gone to 15-minute classes and put 5 minutes on the front and back end automatically. And, to cover for the prep time and the post goodbye time. Right. But bottom line is you got to pay for every minute that they work, unless you're doing what Blair's talking about but most of the states, and I'm in California, every minute, if you text them and have them doing stuff, at home, you pay for every minute. And
same here. That's what we have to do here as well. Yep.
Yes, so I think the takeaway for the audience listening is you do need to look and find out sort of what laws are applying in your specific state right now. And then make sure, to Blair's point, that you're getting out ahead of it by either rewriting the position descriptions, redefining it as piecework, doing the math and figuring out if you want to shorten the classes so that you're allowing those times, or put shoulders on it like Blair did. But there is a solution that can help you with that, but it probably requires some forethought. And I would say, based just anecdotally on all the roundtables I work with, most of the roundtables have done this already because of all the communication amongst the group. But I know there's a lot of clubs out there that haven't really given it a thought, may not have even, gained their attention yet, but it is something worthy of you looking into for sure. You want to say anything else, Sarah, before we move on?
You nailed it.
All right. Bill, you're going to talk a little bit more about risk management.
Yeah, I mean, I do some expert witness work, and I've seen some interesting cases out there that, on one side you go, okay, that's normal practice for a lot of operators. On the other side, you look at it how a reasonable person might look at it, and there's a lot of risks out there that we maybe don't think about on a daily basis. And a couple of the points I wanted to bring up today and get my colleagues' feedback on was, when you rent out space, like you rent out court space or you rent out aquatic space to a swim team or to a swim coach that's got somebody, or to a basketball team, or pick your extracurricular activity that you rent space for. That's a simple independent contractor rental kind of agreement. We'll charge you X for so many hours on the court or in the pool or what have you. Well, if something happens with that person, that independent contractor, with one of your members, or even somebody they brought into the facility, it's now on your premises. And so thinking through, does that person have a background check? Did you check them out with regard to the same policies you would have with regard to an employee in your space serving customers? And sometimes we don't think about that. We just, rent this pool, rent the courts, and let the person come in, and then not realizing there may or may not be risk there with regard to what happens on your premises. And so that's sometimes oversight. A lot of clubs now are doing the functional training equipment around, tracks, around the indoor track, or on the peripheral of basketball courts. Well, if somebody gets hurt off the court in those extra spaces or off the track, you may have an issue, if it wasn't very obvious that you had altered the original intent and use of the space. Had a case where there's a sauna injury, where somebody dumped a whole bucket of water on a sauna heater while somebody was standing next to it, and they were severely burned by the steam, even though most saunas come with a ladle and a bucket to put a little bit of water on there. But when you dump a whole bucket, it creates a big steam flash. So looking at your spaces and thinking about original intent, and looking at it from the lens of what could go wrong in a crazy, crazy way versus what, just seems to be the norm. And I just am finding a lot of things that operators do on a normal course of business that may cause a liability risk. And I think that we can do a better job as an industry at just looking at what could possibly go wrong, and how do we do our best to manage our risk with regard to our environments and our people, and obviously independent contractors that we let into our facilities. So I just want to throw that out to the group.
I'll jump on that. I think one of the biggest areas of risk that we have is stuff that we just normally think we deal with every day, and that's our equipment, right? And we don't know when there's an issue. What I called out facility vitals earlier, right? When you can actually report, I have no piece of facility vitals. I'm just telling you that right now. I just love what they're doing. I spoke with a friend of mine as a gym back on the East Coast. I am a huge proponent of how to do a walkthrough in a club, how frequently to do them, what you should look for, what we call bugs, breaks, and brand standards is the first level. And there's a lot of bugs on machines that people don't fix because they don't think it is affecting the functionality or the safety of the equipment. In this case, I won't name the brand of the equipment, but it has a big, heavy arm that adjusts up and down. it has a cord that is spring loaded to keep that from falling down. That has been broken for a long time. That's a break. They saw it as a bug because they didn't fix it, because somebody could still hang on to that, adjust the machine and do the exercise. A member pulled the pin and it came down and cracked him in the head, damn near knocked him out, bled everywhere. And now they're really concerned about a lawsuit. And think about the inspection process it takes to understand everything that's going on in your club. Your members.
Blair, let me jump on that for a minute, because I mentioned one thing that was huge. A lot of us let people use studios when they're not in class, like studios not having a class, and we let somebody go in there and stretch, go in there and hit the bags if it's boxing, whatever it is. When you do those walkthroughs, check the studios, even though there's no class going on.
Got it.
You know, that's
I got you guys, if you need the extra revenue to rent your studio out, just put the person that the independent contractor or whatever that's renting the facility, put them on as an added insured into your insurance policy. Most insurance policies will not charge you for that. You can add a company, you can add a person. You've got to do that. You've got to be careful. And you also have to be careful and utilize your waivers. And I know that's a whole nother topic that IHRSA is looking at. But we need to adapt our waivers of liability so that at least they represent the main facility in the independent contractor that's using your facility. So your facility is mentioned in their waiver of liability. You know, but the main thing is, like you pointed out, Blair, it doesn't really matter if, you know, if Equinox is getting sued. It's the image of Equinox not being a good employer. It's the image of the club not being safe that we're concerned about. So I really do believe we need to do those walkthroughs and stay on top of things on a regular basis, but do the back end legal protection with the added insureds and the waivers.
Yep.
Yeah. Good point, Sarah. And Bill, your recommendation too, that you said right off the bat, I agree with, which is getting a background check on these independent contractors that are, especially if you're outsourcing a space to them, to check into that person. In this day and age, I think it's so easy, it's very inexpensive and should be done.
Yep.
All right, well, on to a little lighter note. If any of you are keeping up with Equinox at all, you know, they do what we might call shock marketing from time to time. We shared in our last show, I think that in January, they said they weren't open on January. So if you wanted to join Equinox on January the 1st, you couldn't because they were closed. And they said, we don't do January. And they went on to sort of have a little parody about the misconceptions about, oh, I'm going to join a health club in January and get fit right away. So and it was really successful. It was well done. And this is their latest sort of shock marketing. I don't think it's real. We've tried to research and confirm, and it came out on April 1st. So we think it's a little bit of an April Fool's joke. But nevertheless, they use it as a great marketing opportunity. It got a lot of views online, and you'll see why.
Introducing our new dating app.
All right. Yeah. So, we've spent some time in the past talking about the problem of gym intimidation and the fact that we need to, be more open and accepting of all body types and styles. Well, Equinox's ad really kind of flies in the face of that. Now they're launching their own dating app. And while we think that one, again, was part of April Fool's joke, Sarah's aware and had a company approach her business about partnering with them on setting up a dating app with her. So what was that all about, Sarah?
No, not with me personally, maybe with Bill,
No,
but not
with your
me
business.
personally. It's called Team Up, one word, Fitness. And it's a Team Up fitness app. And this dude, Frankie Peps, has a dating app. And like at our conventions, we reach like 7,000 individuals that come to our live event, and 90% of them are female. So I think we were prime real estate for him. But Brent, I look at this and I go, this really relates to what Blair was talking about with having some type of social parameter around being a member. That obviously that April Fool's thing that Equinox did, which basically I want everybody to know how much I love Equinox. They're brilliant, and this is the type of client they want. They didn't put somebody who was obese. They didn't put somebody, you know, they had some diversity, but it wasn't very inclusive. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, if you're over 50, you don't feel real welcome. So
And I
it was
wonder-
interesting.
I wonder, you know, given the apply for membership topic that we did first and the high end, you know, I wonder if somebody isn't seeing that April Fool's deal and thinking, that's not a bad idea for my brand, right? You know, and see something like that, maybe get adopted in an environment like that, right? Where they are trying to, I mean, right from the get-go, they're trying to match up clients, not in that way, right? But they're trying to make sure that there's, you know, from the same sort of age demographic. In this, it was like in the 30 to 39, 40 is their primary target for this one group for application. I could see that making some real traction somewhere.
And it's
Yeah.
not so terrible. We were, before we turned, Brent, I promise I won't go there, but we were talking like you have 3 places to meet people, you know, church, a bar, and a club, a fitness club. So, you know, if it's a way to meet people, it's I think the healthier of the 3, but that's just, of course, that's just personal.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Well-
right. Well, I think one of the points and one of the reasons we wanted to share that was one for your own just sort of interest and to add a little levity to the show, but also because Equinox does do some things really well. And one of those things is sort of this in-your-face marketing that's it catches people's attention. And this is another example of how they got the message out, and they're promoting Equinox and getting people like us to look at it and talk about it, which gives them this heightened awareness in the marketplace about their product. And so that's part of the message about it.
And
All right, Sarah.
they know how to make it work on social media, right? They don't have to do shock marketing and pay for advertising on it. You know, they figure out ways to make stuff travel quickly, just like we don't do New Year's resolutions deal. That got a lot of traction, was pretty smart. Yeah.
And this was on TikTok and Twitter.
Yeah.
Right. That's exactly like you're saying, Blair. Okay,
Right.
Sarah. So how do we get those bodies that look like the Equinox ad? And you've got an answer.
You take a pill, okay? This is the article I found it's called The King Kong of Weight Loss Drugs is Coming. And of course, I had a little bit of a heart attack. And of course, I think I'm going to misquote you, Blair. But Blair was like, this is cool. All right, you didn't exactly phrase it that way. But it's a pill you can take. And it's actually called Mounjaro, which I really kind of like. That's clever. It's got a more technical name. But we know that Ozempic was originally a weight loss drug. This is an older drug that you could lose up to 17% body fat. Well, this new drug that was actually approved in 2022, and they think is going to be launched not just in 2022 for the use in diabetes, but in 2024, either the end of this year or the beginning of 2024, as a weight loss drug. And what they did was they took an individual who was 230 pounds. He lost up to 50 pounds in a test period of 17 months. That's 1.44 pounds a month, which is really cool. And it's relatively healthy. It has the same side effects as we've seen in the past. Nausea, diarrhea, decreased appetite, and vomiting. Okay, it's not something you really advertise. It's not a big selling point, but it's out there. And this drug is really effective. It had very positive, it's an Eli Lilly drug, and it was created really fast because diabetes needs to be combated by producing more insulin, which helps you digest and utilize your energy sources. And fat being an energy source, that's what it utilizes. But I got a little sad because I found some research I looked at the National Institute of Health, and I was looking at the effects of these obesity drugs. So the conclusion of this very well-documented study says anti-obesity drugs, meal replacements, high-protein diets are associated with improved weight loss and maintenance. Maintenance is key here, whereas no significant improvements were seen for dietary supplements like vitamins and exercise. And I wanted to cry. I was like, every single physician, every medical technician, every physical therapist, whatever, they were always combining a diet and exercise, and yet exercise was ranked the lowest for fat loss. And I'm thinking, I started thinking, like, for obese people, they certainly don't feel comfortable exercising and they don't want to exercise. Now I'm gonna let Blair take it away. I don't know which way to point here, but I think what you stated, Blair, was this is a great way to get people to lose weight to then feel comfortable to come into the gym. Did I get it right?
I certainly don't feel like it's the enemy of the fitness industry. I think it's an absolute ally of the fitness industry, as people that are intimidated, that are too heavy and don't feel like they can move well as they lose weight, then they become more active. And I think it becomes a stepping stone to fitness. And by the way, I think you just misspoke on one thing. Ozempic started off as a diabetes drug, then it's off-label use, right, as weight loss. Yeah.
Right.
Now, something yesterday, on Tuesday, saw this in Bloomberg, based on Ozempic and Mounjaro, Weight Watchers stock shot up 59% yesterday. And Weight Watchers shot up 59% just yesterday, based on the off-label use of Ozempic and how Mounjaro is going to come out as the King Kong of weight loss drugs. And they believe that these will be what they're calling cultural phenomenon drugs. And the last two were Prozac and Viagra. And so they're saying this. So Bloomberg is digging in to find out what are all the periphery things. So because what's going to happen is they prescribe it for weight loss. And obviously, that's got to go along with diet. To your point, Sarah, what you were just bringing up, and Weight Watchers, they believe there must be some tie-in happening there. It seems to me, between Weight Watchers and maybe Eli Lilly or something like that.
Yeah, I would just want to, Sarah, this is probably something you probably want to say with your lawyer background here, but we got to be careful what our trainers and our professionals tell the members, especially with off-label stuff and staying in our lane as an industry. We got in trouble back in the day with some trainers getting ahead of themselves with regard to recommending supplements that were not ideal for a particular client, and so, especially when you're talking about the skinny pill and what these consumers are wanting with regard to off-label uses of different drugs, we got to just make sure we have an emphasis that we're fitness professionals, we're not medical professionals, and we got to be careful what we recommend as an industry.
And also, I've got Greg Maurer from Workout Anytime just put an article in chat that people should probably grab. We should grab too. Some research showing that the huge loss in lean mass, as Sarah was saying early on that. And then Joshua Davis makes a good point there too in the chat. I know we need to keep moving here to stay on, but I just wanted to call those out. Okay.
Yeah, and
well,
the
I
research
think
didn't. Oh, sorry, I'll be quick. The research did not talk about psychological positive effects and the mental positive effects that exercise with the production of endorphins stimulates.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to be clear for the people in the audience too. None of us on this call are not huge advocates of being physically active. So we're all about that. We're just trying to share some news about the wonder drugs of weight loss that are really getting popular right now. So,
Brent, can I say one more point before we move on? I know we're over time, but it's like meal replacements. A lot of us that have a background in nutrition are like, meal replacements aren't the way to go for long-term sustained weight loss and healthy living, right? But meal replacements can be great to kickstart and boost somebody's initial weight loss to get them in a pattern of feeling like they're getting down the road and successful. And so, meal replacements can be great, but not as a long-term strategy. this is the same kind of thing to me. You know, if somebody can lose weight as a kickstart and then work into the long-term strategy under a doctor's care with regard to the prescription, that may not be a bad thing.
Yep,
And the maintenance was what they were talking about is then you have to stay on the meal replacement like the rest of your life. That's not the way to go out to dinner. That's not the way to cook at home.
Yeah.
Right.
all right.
Well,
Yeah.
good news for all of us on the call, Blair. You're going to share it with us right now, right? Because we all fit this criteria.
You're all very employable, as it turns out, much to my shock. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of the consulting we're doing out there right now, and a lot of the work that we're doing, a lot of people having a lot of the same problems with hiring people in sort of entry-level positions. In some cases, they might be floor attendants or front desk or kids club that maybe not even show up for their first day of work, that come in late and think that that's like, what's wrong with that coming in late? That have a lot of sick days that, and you know, it's been, so this article from the Wall Street Journal, the title of the article is "Bosses Want Hard Workers." So they're hiring older people. And they are very specifically targeting people 55 and older. And they're showing that this group has a work ethic like they've not seen before. One of these employers is saying, this is the biggest breath of fresh air I've had. They're always 10 minutes early before work. They always greet customers no matter what their job is. And I'm wondering, as I'm thinking, you know, maybe we should be way more focused on this. The last paragraph of this article, there's no official measure of discrimination claims on the basis of being too young, because federal law protects only workers over 40. But human resources departments frequently field grievances from millennials and Gen Zers who say they're unfairly passed over because of their generation's reputation for flakiness. So I thought that was kind of a humorous punctuation mark at the end of the article. But it does have me wondering about, you know, a lot of us have focused on hiring vets and, you know, people that come in with a very strong work ethic. And I'm wondering if we just shouldn't be maybe more deliberate right now. This is right now the fastest growing hiring segment in America is 55 and over.
Hey, Blair.
Yeah.
I had a situation in active wellness with an applicant. We put people through a pretty rigorous interview process. We have usually at least 3 interviews and so on. So this candidate had been 2 hours into the process with 2 to 3, you know, calls and interviews live. And they didn't get an offer yet because they still had another step to go. And candidate said, I've taken myself out of the running. I've spent 2 hours with you people and you haven't made me an offer yet. I'm done. And I was like, yeah, the process is working exactly as it should.
Right.
Now, this was a younger person that just expected that, you know, they've given the employer 2 hours to make a decision and they hadn't made a decision yet. So they don't want to work for an organization that was going to take so long to offer them a job. And, you know, so, but there is a little bit of a discrepancy between age brackets and work ethic in some cases, right? And so, you know, I'm all about what you're talking about here, Blair.
I love that video on Instagram. I can't remember it, but when they have the millennial going in for the interview,
Oh yeah,
who
yeah.
just turns down the job, was never even offered the job.
Yeah, that was good.
I can't
Yeah, that was a great video.
I can't get up. I can't be there at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. But it's kind of, I always think of it as the trophy generation. Everybody got a trophy. Everybody got a soccer trophy. Everybody got a hockey trophy or a basketball. Well, frankly, my house is filled with them. But everybody's a winner, and they just.
Well, you mean the trophies I got weren't deserved?
You know, you guys sound like a bunch of old people that are over 55.
Yeah, I mean, I was in 5th place. What do you mean? I didn't deserve that trophy?
I was just about to yell out the window for this guy to get the hell off my lawn. No,
But I also want to point out that there's a lot of young people that have amazing work ethic.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big believer. I don't know if everybody has Dutch Bros. I'm not sure how far their expansion is with regard to the country, but Dutch Bros does an amazing job of hiring eager,
They do.
personable young people. Everywhere I go, the Dutch Brothers staff, they're young. And once they get the order in the system, how was your day? What are you doing this weekend? And they're not doing it from a script. They're personable and they're trained to be connecting. And so we can't, use a big brush that all millennials and all younger people are not work ethic oriented, but there is a little bit more entitlement going on in the workplace than there ever has.
So the data they have in this is the survey of American values they did last month, that 3/4 of people, 75% of people 65 and older said that hard work is a very important value to them. And so to Bill's point, age 18 to 29, it was 61%. So that is a big drop, but it's still 61%, right?
Yeah.
So
Still a majority.
Finding that 61% that probably, finding that 61%, but also focusing, maybe we focus more on hiring over 55. And Sara, off to you.
No, it's
I think
actually
that's
me.
FTC.
Yeah, that's me. It's a Federal Trade Commission.
Oh, that's Bill.
Proposed a rule change. Some of you may have heard about this. Most people call it the click to cancel proposal related to subscriptions and automatic renewals of memberships and so forth, much like, is so prevalent in our industry. And what the rule actually says is that they want it to be required that if you can join online, then you also need to be able to cancel online, not have to go into, let's say, the health club and cancel in person, not have to write a handwritten letter or send an email. But if you allow them to join online, you should also allow them to cancel online. And the language is just that. They want it to be as easy to cancel as it was to join. And so the question's already come up and they're addressing it in the recommendation right now. Well, what about, can we make an offer, right? If you click, hey, I want to cancel my health club membership online, can we suggest that maybe they join as an alumni member, Blair, or maybe they want to move to a less expensive membership? And the way it's written right now, yes, you can do that, but you cannot do that without first accepting their no and saying, we're happy to cancel. Here's a couple other options if you'd like to consider them. In other words, they don't want to let you take them through this loop where they've got to battle through these other options before they can actually get out of whatever agreement they have related to this auto renewal subscription. So
I just had
passed yet, and it's on the books. And before I hand it over to Bill, IHRSA is very aware of it. The National Health and Fitness Association, the NHFA that was formed when I was there with IHRSA, is talking about, they have a meeting today about their strategy. And they just want to make sure that we, as health club and the health and fitness industry, avoid being lumped in with entertainment, because this is really not targeting intentionally health clubs. It's really looked at, online gaming, Netflix, and lots of other sort of digital subscriptions. And we just want to make sure that they differentiate the health and fitness business and the brick and mortar from all these other online sources. So go ahead, Bill.
Well, I was going to say, just like we do in a business, an audit every once in a while, auditing your credit card subscriptions. I probably have 12 automatic payments coming out of different little things, Apple storage, Apple Music, this, that, and the other, and so a lot of times they just get carried away, a DVD converter, pulling video off the internet converter, whatever it is. There's so many subscriptions out there. I recently tried to cancel a spa subscription where I was paying $100 a month. And I texted them, because that's how they communicate with me. And I texted them, please cancel my membership. And they said, no, you must come in and fill out a form. And I was like, okay. So I went in and filled out the form and did that. But neither on the text communication or when I went and filled out a form, they never even tried to find out why I was canceling. They never even asked me why I was leaving them, but they made me jump through hoops to cancel. And so, as a sales guy, lower the barrier for the customer to enroll them in a lifestyle, but you also have to carry that value system throughout the relationship.
Right.
Cancel the same way you enrolled them, reduce the barrier, and have a great reputation. Our industry is such a small industry with regard to a catchment area. We usually have 3 to 5 miles, if not 2 to 3 blocks of our area. So reputation is everything. Sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is that legally they were highlighting that this law by the Biden administration was too broad. And there's a lot with health clubs. We have short-term memberships, or we have like small group training memberships, and they're shorter durations, and we're just a brick and mortar. So we're distinguishable from the online offers that are out there. And I kind of did the same thing you did, Bill. I decided, all right, I'm going to see what happens if I try to cancel my Wall Street Journal subscription. And they're brilliant. I did it through a chat box. I did it pretty easily, but when I wanted to cancel, I got a second offer back and they said, are you sure? And it was automatic responses. I could just click no, thank you. And then they came back with another offer and I said, no, thank you. But they used it as an opportunity to resell me as well, but they made it easy. So I thought that was pretty ingenious.
Yeah, a lot of people that join your club may have been members of your club before, if your cancellation process was friendly. If your cancellation process is not friendly, they're not going to come back and look for you again. And I've been a big advocate of making it very easy for people to cancel. They come back. That we've seen, I at this point, I can safely say I've seen thousands of pieces of feedback on clubs where people have complained that you made it really easy for me to join and I have to do what to cancel. That's how I'm categorizing that. And especially with Gen Z and millennials, that's how things are supposed to work. And then the other test is whatever your cancellation process is, just say, what I want my mom to go through this, and the answer is almost, if the answer is no, then you just shouldn't be freaking doing it, for God's sake.
It depends how you feel about your mother.
That's true. Well, you can tell how I feel about mine.
And now we know how Sarah feels about hers.
Yeah. Well, we've been preaching, at least Blair and Bill and I know have been preaching this, make it easy to cancel. I mean, there are still clubs out there today that are requiring people to come in person, to write a letter. They really make it difficult to cancel, not including, 30, 45-day notice. So if you haven't clued in on this trend, and sort of change in business practices, we'd all probably encourage you to look at that a little harder. Make it easy to cancel. Regardless what happens with this rule change, it's probably the right thing to do. All right, another big topic over the last year that's just exploded onto the scene is this thing called ChatGPT. Bill, you want to bring us up to speed on how clubs are using that? I mean, it's amazing how many clubs are really incorporating this into their day-to-day business.
Well, I mean, it's I'm not an expert on it, but we're all students, right? And looking at this thing, Brent, you talked about a situation where you wrote an article and you plugged it in there and had it make edits and you liked the product better than your original.
No, never did I say that, Bill. No, I said.
Well, you
Thank
said
you.
something like that, but maybe not that. But
I wrote the article and then afterward I heard about GTT and I looked it up and it was very similar of what their answers were to the sort of the topic of the article. I thought it was very accurate.
Oh, so you were an expert and it almost got as right as you were.
Almost.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
it.
Well,
Yeah, that's it.
the feedback on it is it's not perfect, but it is damn amazing. We were joking around the other day when we were prepping for this show and we plugged in Sara Kooperman. And I mean, she's a rock star according to ChatGPT. I mean, it's amazing, but I want to read you something real quick. After a patient saw multiple physicians and neurologists over 6 months and was assigned a diagnosis of long COVID, a relative entered her symptoms into ChatGPT and with the correct output. Diagnosis was confirmed by antibody testing and therapy has been initiated. So neurologists, doctors missing certain diagnoses and ChatGPT predicted what the actual disease was. It not only has a knowledge base of finding information that's on the internet, right? But it also follows patterns. It understands patterns, right? And human behavior is based on patterns typically, and disease is based on patterns. And so this AI, artificial intelligence, is something that, you know, a lot of times we just kind of hear it in the background and we don't really think about the applications. But let's say, you know, that artificial intelligence could create a better workout for somebody that's more aligned with their metabolic issues, with their physical limitations, with all of those things. And then the trainer uses that to make a better program. You know, I was always very amazed by IBM's Big Blue in medical diagnostics, right? A second opinion that helps a doctor or a practitioner of any sort help a client or a patient, whatever the case may be. And so I think this is just a huge opportunity. I mean, from rewriting letters and memos and text to analyzing or looking at second opinions for certain use cases, you know, it's here now. I mean, and
to cheating on your essay, to
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
to-
The biggest fear is the plagiarism. Sorry, go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, plagiarism in schools is a big issue, but just keeping it connected to the health club topic, you know, what clubs are using it for that I've heard already very successfully is letters to members. Maybe they have maybe they're having a dues increase, or they're launching some new construction, or they want to make an announcement. Not that they couldn't write it on their own, but they asked Chat GPT to write it, and then they write their own, and then they get some ideas there, gives them a head start. Responses, if you have MXM, right, to member complaints, they're using that to give them some language that they can use. Communication with employees, newsletters that you're putting together for members online. Even text related to your website, how you're trying to describe a program or a facility. I mean, clubs are really engaging with it and using it and to help them be more efficient, not to do the work entirely, but right, to help them wordsmith it and be a little more accurate and more colorful.
Yeah, they do. Personalizing it is key, because Chat GPT is not very good at grammar. So you got to personalize it, you got to check it. It's been great for social media and blogs. People have been using it. 50% of the companies in the USA are using it already, and 93% of these firms are looking to expand what they do. So that's really cool. Adding your personal flavor and your personal touches are key.
Also, pretty soon it's just going to be Chat GPT and AI that are interacting on social media. There won't be humans on there anymore. You'll have time to go golf.
well, and if you ever communicated with Blair, you know, grammar is not really critical. You know, grammar is an optional thing.
But that's kind of scary, though. I mean, our kids are not even learning to write script in school anymore, and they just text. And I even, if I'm trying to figure out a percentage of leads to sales ratio, you know, even I talk into Siri and she figures it out for me. And I wonder if that's going to damage our creativity. You know, some people say, well, this is going to free us of the mundane so we can actually work on our creativity. But I look at it a little bit broader.
Yeah. All right, Bill, do you want to kind of give us a wrap up and an overview? Coming up to the hour here.
I'll give you a quick one. I want to go back to something Kathy Latch shared in the conversation about 55 plus. You know, a lot of times employers might be looking at younger people to save money, and that's a big deal. So, you know, taking care of your existing staff and not looking at reducing costs by hiring less experienced individuals is also something to consider. You know, what we learned in COVID was our biggest asset was our people. And so just making sure that when we think about ageism, who we're hiring, the skill set they bring, that we protect the people and take care of the people that have made our businesses successful. So Kathy, I appreciate you throwing that comment in the box, and I just wanted to kind of highlight that. Blair started us off with applying to gyms. everybody wants what they can't have. So making it important, like we put people through an interview process because we want them to know that we're really taking this seriously. We want it to be a win-win relationship. Same thing with a membership, having people apply, having people feel special that they're a member, and your member is your brand. So keeping that cognizant. Sara took us into employment law. You know, there's different state laws that require overtime and every hour worked, and Blair brought up a little bit about piecemeal there, but really making sure you're dialed into your labor laws and doing the right thing by your employees and the right thing by the law. I talked a little bit about risk management. We covered that in entirety, doing a risk management viewed audit of your facility, a walkthrough, an assessment of your systems, an assessment of your training. A lot of times we put things in email or put something in front of an employee, then we say we train them. To train somebody properly, you got to tell them what it is, you got to show them, and you got to do it with them, right? So you got to involve them. You know, Brent, you've always been a big believer in the brief back. You know, after somebody's been trained in something, have them explain it back to you to make sure they really got it. That's something that you've always advocated for and taught people, and it's what's needed in risk management, making sure people really get it. Sara took us into the magic weight loss pill, you know, and all the positive aspects of that and all the downfalls of that, and we hit that with medical lean body mass. You know, none of us are doctors, but being very clear that we stay in our lane and that we understand what's happening out there in the marketplace so we can be that bridge for people to have an active, healthy lifestyle. Blair took us into hiring 55 plus and the assets of that age group. Again, it goes back to skilled workers that have a high work desire, but also not prejudicing ourselves with regard to who we look at regardless of the role based on age. Brent, click to cancel, FTC rules. Let's make it as easy as possible to cancel, just as we would to join, so that we maintain our reputation and we're in it for the right reasons. You know, I don't want any employee to work for me that doesn't want to work for me. And if I've disappointed a member, they don't have to be a member, but I would like the opportunity to keep them as a member. So looking at your opportunities with cancellations, it's easy to cancel, but I really don't want to see you go. How can I keep you? And then I talked a little bit about GPT, chat GPT, and we opined about that. We could do a whole 5-hour session on that alone. There's so many opportunities, but keep your mind open to the benefits of artificial intelligence and also understanding the difference between artificial intelligence and machine learning. Okay, they're two different things, and understanding the capabilities of that. So there's your wrap up, Brent.
Okay, hey, I appreciate it. We're a couple minutes over the hour, but we'll thank everybody for joining us again. Our next show is scheduled for July 26th. Hope you'll come back and join us. We'll obviously have some great topics again. That's sort of there in the middle of the summer. So I hope your summer starts off well. Thanks for joining us again. Take care, everyone.
Bye.